So without further ado, I'd like to bring to the stage Sir Robert Swan. Let's give it up. Bring him here. Thank you, sir. Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, thank you all for coming out so early to listen to somebody who's going to talk about being cold. We're all on a great journey. It's an important journey. And I'm going to tell you a story so you can all relax about what is possible to achieve together. Simple as that. Now, one very important word that Stanfield missed out, so let's get this straightened up immediately. I am the first person in history stupid enough to have walked to both poles. Let's just get that straight. 900 nautical miles to the south, 700 nautical miles to the north. And if you are that person, and I am, I promise you that Rob Swan standing here is only sure of 4 things forever. First and foremost, I'm sure I hate bloody walking. I've done enough, definitely. Secondly, translated into American for you, the coldest day I ever will be in is minus 83 degrees Fahrenheit. It's quite chilly. And at that temperature, sweat turns to ice inside your clothes. So the second thing I'm sure of is to date, I do not enjoy having ice in my underpants. I'm working on it. Thirdly, after 59 fairly tough years so far on the planet, it's sad but true, no insurance company has got the courage to give me life cover. You're going to understand why as the story goes on. And lastly, which is really important for us here now, most people say to me, before we undertake a mission, 2 clear things. First, Rob, you are going to fail. Secondly, Rob, you are going to die. I do not think much about these people, to be honest with you, because it's really easy to be negative. It's much harder to be the positive people around the table. And if there's one thing I've learned, being positive, you can truly lead. You can succeed. So where did this all begin? It began for me at the age of 11. Check out that haircut. And at the age of 11, the dream began. I saw a film about this place, the Antarctic, at the age of 11. And on that day, I said, one day I will become the first person to walk to both poles. Everybody laughed. People talked in terms of counseling and psychiatric help. But the dream began at the age of 11. I was truly inspired by the real explorers, Scott, Shackleton, Amundsen, Peary, Byrd. But I was really inspired when I was at university, and the idea of becoming a polar traveler seemed to go down rather well with girls at parties, so I thought definite. So at the age of 21, I had to raise $5 million US. That's a lot of money today. Today, people are lucky. They can fly to Antarctica to make an expedition. 30 years ago, you had to buy a ship, sail to Antarctica, live there a year, hope your ship returned, and it cost $5 million. And I began the fundraising campaign in the East End of London on the River Thames and thought I could raise the $5 million in 2 weeks. After 5 years of being told no, I thought, well, maybe I ought to change the game here somehow. I was driving a taxi on the streets of London and gradually learnt to listen to why people said no. And eventually, I started to get some yeses. And after 7 years of fundraising, 7 years driving a taxi on the streets of London, we buy our ship, and now we head south, past Australia, and then south off the map to the Antarctic. And after 75 days, 7 years of work, we arrive in the most hopeful place on Earth, the Antarctic, the only place in the world we all own. 5 of us will live in a hut on the edge of Antarctica. 3 of us, after 9 months of waiting, will go as far south as you can go, the South Geographic Pole. As Stanfield said, We're in the business of energy. Without energy in Antarctica, you're dead. So 30 years ago, we used good old British coal, Welsh coal, and jet aviation fuel would be our power source. Without it, you die. We've been innovating our power source since. Then our ship sails over the horizon, leaving 5 of us alone in Antarctica for 1 year. No iPhone 7. None of this. We weren't connected because it wasn't invented. No postal service, nothing. No radio communications. 5 of us now go into our small little home and we wait. 5 very different, awkward, strong people. I did not choose my best friends for this. I chose people who were different. We didn't like each other, but diversity on any team is strong. 9.5 months inside one hut. 5 months of total darkness outside the hut. We came through it by listening to each other, telling the truth to each other, or at least trying. Very important lessons. We came out, the sun returned, 3 of us laid out our equipment. What we're attempting, people said could not be done. We were going to die. The longest unassisted march ever made anywhere on the planet in history. 80 days of food and fuel, 360 pounds on each sled. We will pull those sleds 9 hours a day, 7 days a week, 70 days in a row. We have no radio communications with the outside world. We have no fancy GPS where you press a button and it tells you where you are on the planet. We will navigate, as the real explorers had done, using the sun, a sextant, and a watch. We must find one building in an area twice the size of Australia, the South Pole Scientific Station. If we miss it, we're dead. We have to cross 6,000 crevasses. If you go into a crevasse, you don't come home. And we had to truly trust each other's judgment on this journey as we head south. Halfway to the pole now, we commit. It seems a strange place to commit, but on halfway, we either go back to the base, 500 miles, or we go on to the pole. But once past halfway, we can't turn back because we'll run out of food and fuel. We now have 480 miles where we must find one building in an area the size of the United States of America. And in this picture, we are standing in an area the size of the United States of America, and we are the only people there. Think of that. It's a bit lonely. And beneath our feet in this photograph, 16,000 feet of solid ice. 90% of all the world's ice, we're standing on it. 70% of all the world's fresh water, we're standing on it in this picture. And mark my words, please, if we continue to melt this, we swim. If we continue to melt this, we swim. We're now closing in on the South Pole. As I say, I wasn't doing this for any environmental, sustainability, leadership reasons. I was just doing it to do it. And as we close in on the pole, our ship, Southern Quest, we hope, because we've had no communications for a year, will be back at our base. We'll be unloading an aeroplane onto an iceberg. A complete lunatic will get into the plane, take off from an iceberg, one chance. Fly to the pole, look for us. And if they find us, we jump on the plane, go back to the base, and do something we promised to do. I hope some people here remember the name Jacques Cousteau from France. Well, he was my patron, great guy. And he helped me, got on the phone, helped me with some credibility. You know, one of the greatest things we can all give to others is some credibility. And he gave me some, helped me raise the money, but being Jacques said, Rob, when you leave Antarctica, just leave your footsteps in the snow. Leave none of your garbage or equipment. Respect. I said, cut the speech, Jack. Of course we'll do that. Get on the phone and raise the money. So at the end of the expedition, we fly back to the base. We load everything onto our ship, and then we head north. That was our promise. And those last few days to the pole, think of this. If we have not navigated properly using the sun, the sextant, and a watch, and we're more than 20 nautical miles off the pole, easy mistake, we'll arrive and go, where is it? And we won't know which way to go, run out of food, game over. But we arrived at the South Geographic Pole after 70 days. I lost 69 pounds in body weight. It was a hard journey to make. But we had done it, not me. We had done this, and we stood there for 5 minutes and went, yes, we've done this. And then the base commander from the South Pole, looking a bit grim, he came out and said, Rob, bad news. Your ship sank 5 minutes ago. Frankly, it's just the sort of thing you want to hear when you've walked 900 miles in 70 days, that your ship sank 5 minutes before you arrived at the pole and you've spoken to no one for a year. I fill in lottery tickets with hope, because the odds of this happening make winning the lottery seem quite easy. So right at the moment of our pointless success, everything goes wrong. Most important thing, everybody's safe. And that's all that counts in the end. There are 25 people standing on an iceberg thinking, just wait till we get hold of Rob. We'll kill him. It was his idea. It's only 3,000-mile swim back to New Zealand. Next problem. You can't insure a ship this far south, and being me, I'd convinced my bank manager that I could borrow some money, quite a lot actually, and that I would pay off the debt by selling the ship. No ship, no insurance, I lose my home, all my savings, everybody's laughing at me. Next problem. I promised Jacques Cousteau we would remove our base camp, 60 tons of equipment, no ship, 3,000 miles back to New Zealand. So it wasn't quite the day I dreamed of when I was 11. But on this day, I realized something very clear about leadership. And you can read a lot of books about leadership, but I'll save you the time and money. Leadership, in my humble opinion, is simple. Think carefully before you make a commitment. And when you make a commitment, deliver on it. That's it. Because if you don't, who's going to take you seriously twice? Or 3 times? So standing there, I thought, we've got to finish our expedition. We promised Jacques Cousteau we would remove our rubbish and equipment and garbage. And it required 3 volunteers spending another year in Antarctica. No one's ever paid. God bless the United States of America. Some fantastic US Navy pilots literally looked the other way while we got onto one of their planes, and when we got off in New Zealand, they looked the other way. So we managed to get the team back to New Zealand. Thank you very much for that. And I promised the 3 at our base who would stay there to make sure our equipment didn't blow across Antarctica. I'd come back a year later. We did, took another ship 1 year later, and delivered on our promise. Do what you say you're going to do. It builds track record. And track record is, in my opinion, quite important. So, something happened to me walking to the South Pole that brought me here today. And it hurt. My eyes changed color in 70 days through damage. Our faces blistered out. We hadn't read about this in the stories of the real explorers, so why were we frying up and our eyes burning out? Simple. When we got home, we were told by NASA, yes, that we'd walked under the hole in the ozone layer the year and month it was discovered. Ultraviolet rays down, hit the ice, bounce back, fry out the face, burn out the eyes. Now, do remember I'm an Englishman, occasionally a little slow, but I get there in the end. And it started me thinking, because it's quite a shock to have blisters in your eyes, it started me thinking that maybe some of these issues about our survival on Earth weren't somebody else's problem. Maybe I had some part to play in it. Simple. I know you're all extremely good business people, so don't follow this moment in my life. I laugh now, but it wasn't that funny at the time. I thought I could pay off my debts for the South Pole by walking to the North Pole. It tripled the debt, but anyhow, if we got there, I would become the first person stupid enough to do it. Roger and Gareth from the South Pole, being sensible human beings, said, "Rob, you're on your own this time, mate." So I now have an international team, 8 of us from 7 different nations. We will now walk every step away from land. It's like going down to the beach in Sullivan Island here, taking a step off the beach onto the ocean and walking 700 miles into the middle of the Atlantic across ice that you hope will stay ice. So every step now for 56 days we're moving away from the safety of land. Walking to the North Pole is completely pointless, extremely hard, and really bad for your back because you're pulling across a frozen ocean of ice. It's very, very, very hard physically. If you fall down any of these holes in the ice, you go straight into the Arctic Ocean. Not much fun. This was our home, 8 of us from 7 different nations for 56 nights in a row. We had to learn patience. And on the right there, Daryl from Harlem, New York City, would follow in the footsteps of the most forgotten explorer in history, Matthew E. Henson. He was standing next to Admiral Peary, we remember him, at the North Pole in 1909. And he was a black chap from Harlem, and Daryl would follow in his footsteps. But in this picture, you can see how much Daryl really enjoyed Rupert's music. Not much. We had to learn patience. Here we are, yes, again translated for the United States of America. This is me coming in from washing naked at minus 71. Gentlemen, you will notice clearly, gentlemen, that there is absolutely nothing hanging down in the central area of the photograph. It's your job, gentlemen, to explain to our esteemed ladies later why and how this happens to a naked man at minus 71. Let's just say it's a bit cold. So, imagine if you actually don't like doing this. I am not an explorer. I'm not. Rather a pathetic traveler. And I don't like living in tents with smelly people and being freezing. I can think of better things to do. So, South Pole done, 900 nautical miles. North Pole, 600 miles down, 100 miles to go. It's a great feeling. And you think, I'll never have to do this again. And then right at the moment, when you could see the end, it happens. The entire ocean, when we're 642 miles from land, melts. 4 months before it had ever melted before. This photo was taken April 7. It's supposed to look like this on August the 7th. And we're dead. And on this day, I realized a very clear thing. That our world is much more powerful than we are. And if we mess with it, it takes us down. It's quite a moment to stand in the middle of a breaking up ocean. And do remember we're British led. We don't have some CNN camera crews filming us, no sort of Russian submarine on standby just in case we get our feet wet. No one knows where we are, and we're dead. And I realized on this day that I was not an explorer. I certainly wasn't an environmentalist, and I wasn't a scientist. what I needed to be was a damn good survivor. And how we would get through this required 40-hour days. Thinking way outside what was possible, we can march 40 hours simply because it's 24 hours of daylight. So I order. The only time in my life I've ordered something. I order 40-hour days. And I'm sorry to show you this picture, but it's the reality. Darrell, our brave American, lost his heel off his foot, 110 clicks out, and he must keep walking. He does. And after 56 pretty tough days, we got there, and it was a good day. We had done this. 90 North. And we flew a flag, which I think is still important, our flag. And I was so proud of that moment. We'd done it. So went back home, thought I might get a rest, but no. Jack Cousteau summoned me and said, Rob, didn't say sort of, well done, Rob, for all you've done, remove garbage from the Antarctic. Nothing, none of that. He just said, what are you doing for the next 50 years, Robert? And I said, I've no idea. I'm sure I'm about to find out. And 25 years ago, exactly, he gave me a 50-year mission. Not every day you get a 50-year mission from Jacques Cousteau and no budget, but anyhow. He gave me a 50-year mission because in the year 2041, the treaty that helps preserve Antarctica, which we all own, by the way, each of you own a piece of Antarctica the size of a football pitch. We, 7.2 billion of us, own Antarctica. And it is the last true great wilderness left on Earth, and it should remain as a natural reserve land for science and peace. So we're 25 years into that mission. We have 25 years to go. And I just think it would be great if we had the sense to leave one place alone on Earth forever. To do that, we must engage young people because they'll be voting in 2041. I'll still be around, Zimmer frame with skis on the bottom, of course, but, I won't probably be voting. So we've engaged young people for the last 25 years. Took down a team immediately, 35 from 25 nations. Unfortunately, I've made so many mistakes in life, but this is one of my best. I should have just said to this team, look, why don't we adopt these penguins, and that will be a nice global mission and inspire young people. No. I said, you choose the mission. Mistake. They saw 1,500 tons of twisted metal left in Antarctica by the former Soviet Union and said, Rob, could you move it? They had no idea. I had no idea. But we thought carefully, made the commitment. This took 8 years of my life. $10.5 million the idiot here had to raise. Joint cooperation with the Russian government. Anybody done one? It means you pay for everything, but this was great. It took us 8 years because you can only go there 3 months a year. Businesswomen, businessmen, young people, engineers to get sponsorship. I went to the Netherlands, and I said to the people in the Netherlands, I wouldn't have a car in my garage by what I've seen in Antarctica. You ought to have a boat in your garage because you guys swim first. Perhaps Charleston won't be far behind, but anyhow, that's another issue. So we managed to get a yacht sponsored to be our flagship, and we gradually pulled this together, all this rubbish in Antarctica, garbage, took down an old ship, no infrastructure, no government help, nothing, loaded that ship. That took 4 months, and I'm really proud, really, really proud that my mother reminded me what to do. Mum is 101 in October, yes. And Mum knew how to spell the word recycling before it was on any sort of dustbin or garbage bin. And she said, as any mum could, Robert, you can't possibly go to the Antarctic, remove all this stuff, and not recycle it, boy. I said, Mum, we're on it. So I'm very proud to say that we recycled all of this 3,000 miles back in the country of Uruguay. So I feel it's important, and I abuse this, to say to young people today, sounding like my father, which is good, that, you know, if we can manage to do this, they might just manage, it could be a struggle, of course, to move their arm. Anyhow, people do listen to that, especially young people. Very proud of this. And on this day, I realized an important word on leadership, and it's being relevant. It is important to check that one is being relevant. And on this day, I realized that I wasn't. The beach was clear, the penguins came ashore, fantastic. But I would not help preserve Antarctica by being a garbage man. What I had to do is to become like you, businesslike, and realized that actually KPMG, the accountants, would save Antarctica in 2041. How? That they would look at a balance sheet on the exploitation of Antarctica, costs per barrel, per ton, and go, it's not worth it financially. How do you do that? Easy. Just use more clean, renewable energy in the real world, save energy in the real world, use different types of fuel here in the real world, biofuels, etc., etc., drive down the cost of all those things, and no one's going to go to Antarctica. So I changed the game to try and be relevant to being a renewable energy champion and tester. The game changed. And literally, as we sailed away from Antarctica with all of that rubbish and garbage, the Larsen B ice shelf in Antarctica told us that we should be listening more on the whole issue of climate change. Whether it's actually we're causing it or it's natural, it doesn't matter. It's happening, and we need to listen to that. And in order to get that message across, this, by the way, isn't a United Airlines flight plan. We went to sea for 7 years with our yacht, going around the world, testing out different types of renewable energy, and every year, and we're just back, less than a month ago, we're just back from the Antarctic, and why I don't look quite English-coloured, most English people kind of look this colour, I look this colour because I just lived for 4 years in India. Why? Because there's 1.4 billion people in India who want this, and they have every right to have this. But if they get this, making the same mistakes we make in the West, still getting this, we swim. 1.4 billion people. So I spent 4 years in India, a year and a half in China. That's where the power will be. It's where the power almost is already. And we must have them as part of any business plan, anything at all. It's really important. And ladies, I hope you're proud, because I am. We often don't join the dots in our world enough. We watch with dismay the hate, the violence, the whole issue of the Middle East. But what we tend to forget is one of the reasons that happens is lack of hope. There are 130 million young people unemployed in the Middle East, nearly half the population of your great country unemployed. And unemployed young men tend to go the wrong way, if you get my meaning. So let's inspire them. One way to inspire young men is through young women. We all know that. So over the last 4.5 years, we've involved 80 fantastic young women from the Middle East, coming from countries who've never been to Antarctica. They come with us, they get a great story, they go home as champions of hope, and they go back as champions on sustainability. Very proud of that, to Antarctica. And even more proud, yes, that, as I say, moving from India to California was a bit of a shock, I have to say. And I'm working, as you'll hear, in California with NASA on our new project. And of course, I go to Washington, D.C. to listen to what's not happening politically, and go to New York to maybe raise a bit of money occasionally. And I thought I'd come down to the south. And I'm not a here today and gone tomorrow person. There's too much of that in the world. Everybody just seems to go like this and everything moves on, you know. And I thought I'd choose to come down here to Charleston, Charlotte, Atlanta, come to the south, because I felt somehow that people were really taking a lot of these innovation issues seriously, and came here and put together, not me, but we've got some of our members here. Please stand up, team, from Team Charleston, and they were with us in Antarctica. Managed to survive me for 2 weeks in Antarctica, and young Isabel came, and she's 11, and she was following in the footsteps of my little dream that started when I was 11. Well done, Team Charleston. Fantastic. Antarctica, it's a privilege to go, but what we saw there, what they saw there, is the reality. That, you know, huge ice shelves are melting. Ice shelves that will raise the sea level around the world. It's a reality. We need to think about it. I like this photo because it's spot the mobile phone. There aren't any. So people actually talk to each other, which was nice. And last year, we had the hottest day ever in the history of the Antarctic when we were there. 64 degrees Fahrenheit in the Antarctic. We must listen. And all over the world, we've built, because remember, I'm a renewable energy champion and tester, these education stations, little buildings all over the world running only on renewable energy. This is my education station in the Antarctic. Girls, check out the plastic flowers. Efforts are made. But it all runs only on renewable energy. Our yacht, again, through innovation, has sails made from recycled Coca-Cola bottles, and they work. We go around the world with our yacht showing how renewable energy works. And on those renewable recycled plastic bottle sails, we have a solar sail. You've got to show people, don't tell them. Young people today do not need any more information. They just need some inspiration. And young people are desperate for it because they've got so much stuff coming in. They need sustainable inspiration in a small way, and we try our very best on that. Test out different fuels in our engine. Anybody from India here? Perhaps my favorite place on the planet. And if you took your yacht to India, you'd end up in customs for 97 years filling in paperwork, right? And it would be pointless anyhow taking a yacht to 1.4 billion. And sometimes being relevant is painful. So over the last 4 years, I've done 5,100 miles on a bicycle around India, which is far more dangerous than walking to both poles backwards in your underpants. Those who can see the color of the traffic signal, it's red and everybody's going through it. That's why I like India. But it was relevant to lots of young people. We built an education station at a tiger reserve, bit more biking, went up to the Himalayas. And the Himalayas provides 3.2 billion people with water. It's only 350 million in your country. 3.2 billion, and parts of the Himalayas are melting almost at walking pace. We need to engage. So in our own small way, it probably doesn't make a lot of difference, but we try. We built an education station in the Himalayas, only running on renewable energy, for the local community to engage with a global community. And every year we go back to the Himalayas and electrify, using solar, one village up there. This young man was really, really impressed by having his first electric light from solar at night. Great stuff. And in the United States of America, in West Virginia, we have our education station here, opening on June the 10th. Very proud of it. Now, coming quickly to the end of the story, ladies and gentlemen, how many people here know that there's a hole in the ozone layer? How many people here know it's fixing itself? Stanfield and about 4 others. Why don't you know that? Without an ozone layer, nothing would grow on the planet. In 1985, a treaty was signed. We don't use the CFC gas. It's great news that we can do stuff, but we don't know it because it's good news. That's why. How many people here have ever heard of Rob Swan? About 4 of you. These lot can't escape me. That's their problem. But, you know, you don't know this story. It's not a bad story, is it? It's quite hopeful. You don't know it because it's good news. That's why. And I promise not to do it because I'm driving to Washington, D.C. At the end of this talk. And so it won't happen. Stanfield, don't panic. But was I to be caught with my trousers down in a terrible scandal tonight on the streets of Charleston with Charleston Cougars' wives? Everybody would know everything we'd ever done by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. And that's the world we project on our young people, and that's not good. I think we should all be in the good news business. So, finally, we were about to get a life, well, I was, and I was hauled in by NASA, and they said, Rob, we got very excited about the Larsen B ice shelf. Why is no one taking the breakup of these huge areas seriously? I said, probably because you're being negative. So much against my will, when you have areas of ice breaking off Antarctica the size of Rhode Island State, it's time to try and be a bit more positive. So, it's a lot of ice. It's a lot of ice. And we need to take it seriously. So I'm taking it seriously enough to go back one last time. And 30 years ago, we walked to the South Pole. And at the end of next year, we will be doing another 600 miles on foot. And Keith, where's Keith? Keith Sauls, I think some of you know him. He's coming with me later this year to do 100 miles on foot out there testing our stuff. Thanks a lot for volunteering for that, Keith. You might not speak to me a lot after it, but, you know, we'll see how it goes. He's doing a lot of training, so I'll be ready. So we're making that journey. And as you all know, innovation and technology is all about today, isn't it? These 3 days. And, you know, Lindbergh flew the Atlantic on his own in 37 hours in 1927. Exactly 30 years later, through innovation and technology, last thing the British did properly, we flew the first passenger jet from London to New York, 6 hours. Jet, passenger, 30 years of technology. 10 years later, Buzz and Neil were standing on the moon, and I'm so proud to be the patron, some of you might have seen it, of my very, very good friend Bertrand Piccard, who just flew across the Pacific in a solar aeroplane at 40 miles an hour. Imagine being at 27,000 feet above sea level in a solar-powered plane, and it's dark. That's bravery. Testing renewable technologies to the limit. So following in his footsteps, working with NASA, we're going to survive on this journey only using renewable power. Working with NASA, we're working out our ice melting system, and God bless him, my son Barney, who's 21, has volunteered to come with his father to march side by side. He's a rude young man, and he said basically, Dad, you know, you can deal with the old people, I'll deal with the younger people. So he's coming to join us. So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I just think it's important to some sort of disco movement with the slides, or maybe it's me. Anyhow, at the end of this year, we're going to go, Keith's going to come and make a journey to the South Pole with us, but we're also going to a place called Union Glacier, which is at 80 degrees south, and I hope maybe a couple of you might join us there. It's not for Tarzans or Amazons, it's for people who care, to be testing some of our renewable technologies. We're going to land on a big plane powered by biofuel, which is exciting, live there for 10 days, continue our testing, also testing out different types of fuels, because our world won't be powered by the wind and sun for a really long time. So it's going to really inspire young people when they see us using jet fuel made from maggots. Like, this will go yuck. People are going to like that bit. So we're out there testing. We're going back. It doesn't fill me with a huge amount of enthusiasm. You know, walking to both poles was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I'm going back to do it again. Not because I want to, but that's the best I feel I can do to inspire people on this issue. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for listening to our story, because it is our story. And I'm very proud to be part of the Southern family. I feel very, very welcomed, and I would like to contribute as much as I possibly can to all that you're doing. So thank you very much. Good luck to you all. Thank you.
Keep it going, everybody, for Robert Swan, everyone. That was amazing. Unbelievable. Thank you guys for being here for the opening keynote. Real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to some of our sponsors for today. We have Coastal Coffee Roasters. Give it a round of applause for all the sponsors making this possible. Coastal Coffee Roasters, Charleston Green Taxi, technical event company. They're the ones that provided all the audio visual out here, this amazing setup and backdrop. Event House and Wow Businesses. One more time for the sponsors, everybody, for helping put this together. Also, one more time for Robert Swan. Hi, everyone. Come on. That was unbelievable. There he is. So as of right now, the DIG lounges are open in all the different rooms. The breakout sessions are going to be starting. So you could go ahead and make sure you check that out. You can also check digsouth.com. The mobile site has all the information about the most up-to-date and recent schedule. So make sure you check that out so you know exactly where you're going. And then right here at noon, we have our super keynote with Brooks Buffington, who is the co-founder and COO of Yik Yak, which is a big social media platform. So that's going to be amazing. You want to check that out. Thank you guys so much for being here. And one more time, everybody, Robert Swan. How about that, huh? Thank you guys so much. We'll be back here in a little bit. Also, ladies and gentlemen, if you could go ahead and start clearing out, you'll see the air walls starting to close. These are going to move out. Those are very heavy, so make sure you go ahead and clear out of the room, or make sure you stay out of the way of the middle as best you can. Those things are coming out. We're going to close these out. So go ahead and clear the space and get on out of here.